that's definitely another form.
Yeah. And it was okay. Let me story time. Okay, so I was working for ShareGuard as an assistant store manager. That's the startup role. That's how you start up as. And I had this manager, Asian manager, and he was really cool. My same age group. Just had a baby, so he's working hard to feed his family and whatnot. And we had a branch meeting one time. So branch meeting meaning different branches come together, and then you have like a little meeting.
What's going on, people? It's your boy B Yaks, and welcome to another episode of Fly on the Wall Perspective. And today we'll be delving into and unpacking intersectionality, a term that was coined by African American civil rights advocate and critical race theorist Kimberly Crenshaw. So intersectionality essentially is an acknowledgement that everyone has their own unique experiences with discrimination and oppression. When I was going to university a couple of years ago, one of my lecturers was talking about intersectionality, and this is how he put it in front of the whole class in a very black and white way. He said, if you're a black woman in the workplace, not only will you be subjected to discrimination because you're a woman, because you're also a black woman. And also if you're a lesbian black woman, that's another layer of discrimination. So very interesting topic that I think people don't really go into enough, so I think we should definitely start shedding more light on intersectionality, because it's very prevalent and it happens on a day-to-day basis. So I am joined today by
Mika,
Blessing,
and
Sharon. How are we doing, ladies?
We're good. We're living. That's what
all good.
Yeah, thriving.
That's good. So I'll start off with you, Shan. What does intersectionality mean to you? Have you heard of this term before?
So I never actually heard of the term before, and didn't know what it meant until I think we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, oh, actually, what does this mean? And you don't realise that when something has a name, all of a sudden you're able to see it everywhere. And before, I didn't realise how prevalent it was, or how recognisable it was in my life throughout the whole of my life, in various different ways, but predominantly at work. I think I've experienced it a lot more in the workplace. So yeah, I'd never heard of it before.
Yeah.
But it's great when something has a name, then you can identify it. Otherwise, it's just like a myriad of things. So.
Right. Yeah, interesting. And you, Blessing?
Yeah, same with Sharon. Like, I've not heard the word before, but the content of it, I understand it. Like, I've had experiences, discriminative experiences, especially, okay, so I've got sickle cell anemia, and I've had discrimination to the point where, because I have sickle cell, I'm deemed unreliable on paper. But really and truly, I could take your job. I work really hard. But
Really?
Yeah. I've had.
Do you have to disclose that?
Before I never did, because I was scared of facing that type of, okay, well, we have to treat her differently now.
Right. Yeah. See, on the grounds of discriminated basically on grounds of like
health.
disability, essentially.
Yeah.
That's definitely another form.
Yeah. And it was okay. Let me story time. Okay, so I was working for ShareGuard as an assistant store manager. That's the startup role. That's how you start up as. And I had this manager, Asian manager, and he was really cool, really cool. My same age group. Just had a baby, so he's working hard to feed his family and whatnot. And we had a branch meeting one time. So branch meeting meaning different branches come together, and then you have like a little meeting or like a little activity or icebreakers or things to do with it. So just to us colleagues to familiarize with with each other. And I had this black lady who was a manager of a different branch but the same company, and she had come to me and told me, "Blessing, you're doing really well. Like I can see you. If you carry on like this, you're gonna go through the roof." Okay, so this is where it gets a bit tricky now. Before you know it, now, whenever you have a new job, there is a 90-day is it 90 days? Probation period. Yeah, 3 months probation period. You can't come late after a certain amount of time or whatnot. Now, I had this manager now, my manager, the Asian guy. He said, he called me in one time. He called me in and was like, "Listen, we need to discuss about your attendance." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Yeah, you've come in late, more than 20 minutes." And I said, "Okay, could you show me proof?" Could you show me proof?
Dun.
And then he showed me the proofs. He showed me when I took whenever I clocked the times that I've clocked in. So I got my phone out and I went to the messages. I said, "Okay, well, look, here I told you guys that I was 2 minutes away. Here I told you guys because I was ill the night before, had to get myself together, still come to the work and still be able to work."
Receipts.
I had receipts for that mother. You know what I'm saying? I had receipts. I was not gonna let somebody tell me, "Oh, you're this like no. Okay, listen. Come on.
iPhone unlocked. Siri.
Niger lingo there.
Listen. So then there was this one time I was 20 minutes. I was like, I do not recall. And but that's how I lost my job. I lost my job because of that. And I feel like being late. But I feel like it was more to it because I remember like being ill and I'm having to call my boss. I'm like, okay, I can make it, but I won't be on time, or I have to gather myself a little bit. I have to get myself together a little bit, take my medications, all that type of stuff, make sure that I'm fully okay to work. Now, karma is a bitch because 2 weeks later, and one of my colleagues called me and said, "Oh my God, Blessing, you're not going to believe what happened." I'm like, "What happened?" "Oh, gosh, I was just about to say his name. The Asian guy, he got fired." And I was like, "Why did he get fired? For what?" He said, "Oh, he got caught doing backdoor contracts." What I mean by backdoor contracts is, for example, with ShareGuard now, you can't take out a self-storage. You can't rent out a unit without ID. And he was renting out units without ID. Like with my kolo eyes, I used to see him like take the clients to the staff room and, a little cash in hand, and then that's it, done. But yeah, I'm going off topic a little bit, but yeah, so in all, I've always had to question myself. Okay, do I tell somebody that I've got sickle cell? Because really and truly, let me call a spade a spade. Really and truly, on paper, I am unreliable. I am, because I can say that I'm coming to work the next day, but then 3 o'clock in the morning comes and I have a crisis and it hits me. I can't go to work now. I can't. So yeah,
That's the point of that. Is then how is that addressed? How is that like managed so that you can still keep a job? You shouldn't have to be discriminated because of that. On top of all of the other, that's what intersectionality is like. Really highlights is that you've also got this illness, but also you're a black woman. You're also like in the workforce. There's loads of other compounding
underlying factors.
Yeah. I see what you mean.
Was it predominantly white?
White, it was white. Yeah.
Okay.
White.
Did you feel like people were treating you away, like on a day-to-day basis, or
because of how good I was?
Okay, yeah.
Because of how good and how quick I was on my feet. It's like, okay, I always say this: teach a white man, something, he's gonna come back with silver. Teach a black man something, he's gonna come back with gold. Am I lying? You're laughing.
That's objective.
I think from an employer's perspective, there's it's not necessarily. I think as a whole, the employer, they kind of more time. I think the majority are fine, but when it comes down to management, there will be the select few that have their own personal views, and they filter through their views and path in life. Like, I am Asian myself, and I know for a fact that there is a lot of racism within our community towards Black people. It's a very well-known thing, and it's very prevalent. So I'm not surprised about, what he did.
Yeah.
And was that the first instance, or was that, just a straight meeting and he just said, because you're 20 minutes late, you have to go? Was that the first one, or?
No.
Would he smile in your face like every day as well?
Yeah,
one of
he
those
would.
kind of people.
Yeah, he would. Or he'll tell me, "Oh, bless you, you're doing really good. You're doing really good," or you're working really well. But then behind closed doors,
Something else
it's
going
a different,
Ulterior motives.
ulterior motive,
Right.
different story. And I think what got him was, remember, like I said, the other Black lady who was a manager from another branch who had told me that, bless you, you're gonna climb through this ladder. I think he felt a bit like, oof, this Black girl is gonna come and take my job.
Right.
I feel like he felt a bit like threatened or something, like, I don't know what word to use, but
Right.
I feel like he felt like, okay, the more I'm working, the more I'm going to take his position.
Okay.
So I think.
So he kind of felt competed against.
Yeah.
So his position was it? So he was your line manager.
He was my manager. Yeah.
So he was your line manager.
Yeah.
So, there's numerous things, right? So, not only did you have sickle cell anemia, but you also have the fact that you are, you're Black, and also you're a woman. So the level of lenience that they're going to give you significantly less, because humans are very visual creatures, right?
Yeah.
We all have stereotypes. You have stereotypes towards white people, Asian people, Chinese, whatever. I have stereotypes towards, everyone else as well. We go through life.
We've all got a level of like biasness.
Yeah. Everyone's very biased. So his level of bias was more likely higher. So I think I'm not surprised that he probably let you off, not just because of the sickle cell anemia, but also because she's Black, she's a woman, and also I feel like my job is at threat.
Yeah.
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 So it's something that you kind of have to accept, and you have to work with it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I mean, I think like after that job, I was so discouraged.
Okay.
I was so discouraged to work for somebody again.
Right.
And to have to explain to them, okay, this is what I deal with. However, I'm a damn good worker.
Right.
But so I just thought after that, I just said, I'm just gonna go into business myself, work for myself, and that's it. Because then everything would be on my terms. I could work around my illness.
You're self-reliant.
And self-reliant, exactly. So
right.
Yeah.
So what was his rebuttal when you showed him the receipts?
It says, oh, well, it's on the system. This is what was logged in the system, and they're going to go for what's on the system. I said, okay, fine. I can't argue that. What do you want me to say? You want me to go and cut myself?
So how long ago was that?
This was 2018.
Right, okay.
2018, yeah.
Right. Have there been any worse situations than that, would you say?
I've worked for Monsoon. Monsoon, I don't know if you know Monsoon.
Yeah.
And this is why, again...
Who are they?
Monsoon is a fashion clothing brand.
Okay.
I think they're Italian, I'm not sure. Can't really pinpoint. But due to my sickness, again, I had the lady tell me they can't continue with me. They cannot continue with me because they need somebody who is efficient. They need somebody who is reliable. They need somebody who says that if they're going to come to work, they're going to come to work. Because, they were giving me excuses and telling me, oh, well, if you say that you can't come to work, we then need to scramble and find somebody last minute to replace you. And they don't want to have to go through all of that.
Right.
Yeah. So I've faced discrimination with my disability, and it really it did affect me a lot, because I just thought, why am I not able to, like you hired me, like you see
Yeah.
my credentials.
Was you pulling too many sickies
No.
for them?
No.
Okay.
No.
So how did it happen this time around then?
Okay, so I actually had a crisis and I had to go into hospital.
Yeah.
And I was off work for like a week. And yeah, the lady was just like, sorry, it's as much as we would like you on board, we can't work with you no more, based on the fact that, because we don't know whether you can come to work or not, and when you do come to work, what if you have a crisis during work? We can't be liable for your how should I say, we can't be responsible for your illness, or how we wouldn't know what to do. That's what she was saying. We wouldn't know what to do. We wouldn't. I'm like, but I can tell you, if something like this happens, I can tell you the steps that you need to take, but hey, I guess.
To what extent do you agree with the employer's perspective? Because I work in a very competitive field, and it's very difficult for them to replace people or find people last minute, especially if you're trying to excel the business. So having reliable employees is a key part.
It is.
So
sadly, like, fair enough. I just have to be honest with myself, and I have to see where they're coming from.
Right.
Yes, they do need somebody who's reliable. They do need somebody who says if they're gonna come to work, they're gonna come to work. They do need somebody who isn't gonna come on a shift and then all of a sudden, I'm ill. Or,
I'm in pain.
I'm in pain.
Yeah.
So I understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, give a sister a chance, man. To prove herself to you, or to work. Like, you want me to be jobless? Like, imagine if there was nothing such thing as business and or entrepreneurship, and I really have no choice but to work a 9 to 5. What, are you gonna leave me jobless now?
Yeah, it's just another number though, aren't you? Yeah.
And I think, like, similar to Blessing's experiences, I can't relate to the disability aspect. So that's also another thing. Even though we're both Black women, there's also another layer of intersectionality that you're dealing with that I have no understanding of. But from my perspective and my experiences, mine was really integrally, like, ingrained in my work. I've worked in loads of different sectors: healthcare, retail, hospitality, management, design, tech. I move around because I'm curious about human beings.
You get about.
Yeah,
Well, choice of words. Let's not say get about. Not on camera. No, but I do like working. I like meeting new people, and the area of my expertise is always operational. So I'm always like behind the scenes. I'm always working with creatives behind the scenes. It's where I find my comfort. Yeah. So I studied as a graphic designer, and never went into the workforce as a graphic designer. I've just always worked around design, creativity, and going into the workforce, I started in retail, and retail is retail. Everyone has their experience of retail, but I found that the higher up I got in terms of, or not higher up, but the more refined the industry I worked in, for instance, it being design, the more nuanced and clear I can now look back at intersectionality and see, oh my God, it's so evident, Like, there was one design company, I'm not as bold as you, I'm not going to mention them, but I worked in a design agency, really massive design agency where I live in South London, and there were like 80 full-time permanent staff members, and at a point when you have freelancers come on, so we'd flex up to 120. I was a studio assistant, and there was a studio manager and an operational director. That's it. And when I try to explain that to you, I'm trying to say like there's 3 people managing a design studio of at full capacity 120 people. This means people are coming and be like, oh, do you have anything from, can you send this post to somebody, to I can't log into my system, or I need this expense, or da 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 da. So I'd get into work at like 7 o'clock in the morning and you're leaving at like 6 p.m. In that environment, I was the only person of color.
Right.
120 people, that's only person of color, and and when I say person of color, I mean black person.
Yeah.
So there was one mixed race young man, maybe, and another lady from like mixed heritage, and then also I think maybe 2 people from other ethnic minorities, but as I'm
tokenized people.
Well, I think actually probably yes. And it's time for me to lean into the truth. And when you're in that environment and you're working at such a high level and you look around and there's no one else that looks like you, it's quite unsettling. It's on a micro level, just a little bit unnerving, you know? Because it feeds into like, am I doing this right? Like, first of all, you start questioning. I had a lot of imposter syndrome. So I was like, why am I here and no one else that looks like me is here?
Right.
This is mad. Like, and I live in South London, and there's 120 of all of you, and there's one of me here. And so then you start, working even harder.
Yeah.
You start,
to prove yourself.
my working hour starts at 9. I was in at 7 o'clock. What am I doing? And everyone's like, Sharon, why are you here? And I'm like, just want to make sure, I'm doing all of my work. You're working on like Sundays. Yeah. You're working. I was doing 75 hours. And then, so just to get to where I'm going. So when I started having a conversation about my appraisals, I'm like, okay, cool. So I think I'm ready to become a studio manager, because I'm running the studio with the studio manager who also does her work, but we don't need to delve into what she actually does. Can I be considered for a promotion or something? Sharon, you're good, but I just don't think you're ever going to really reach managerial potential. That was said to me point blank in my face by the operational director. Because when I was hired, she said, what do you want to achieve when you succeed? And I was like, I want to be where you are.
Right.
In my interview.
Right.
Period. I was like, I want to be a director where you are.
Straight.
So how are we going to make this work?
Straight.
A year in, I'm expecting you to start making, how can I excel? I don't want to be a studio assistant for the rest of my life, you know?
Right.
She's like, don't think you're going to make it. And I thought, okay, interesting.
So you asked her?
Yeah.
Right, and what did you say?
I was like, she was like, well, there's some things that you don't really do really well, like your time management, and you also, and she was like, time management, and she was like, also this is one of the things
shock horror.
One of the things that made me so, I couldn't believe it. She said, you consider things too long. You take a long time to consider things. I said, what do you mean? She's like, when you're reading emails and stuff, you really proof check and it takes too long. So I was like, okay, so I'm because I'm a perfection. Anyway, fine. I left obviously, but what I want to raise and highlight is that when I left, 3 people were replaced. Like 3 people took my job, so they split my role into 3. So there were 2 studio assistants and another HR person was hired. I was working at the capacity of 3 people. This is facts. But I wasn't ever given the opportunity or given even just the confidence to believe that I could actually excel. Because when I'm sitting there and asking you, I'm saying, I want to move up, I'm told that I'm not going to be a manager.
Going back to when you had that interview or when you were talking directly to your line manager, when you said, I would like to be in your position, what was the response after what you said?
It was, oh, okay.
Verbally and facially?
Yeah, it was like, oh, okay. Almost now when you look back, I'm like, she probably thought,
the audacity.
I know, who do you think you are? But she was encouraging. She wasn't. But she feels threatened deep down.
Yeah, definitely.
And also, what I want to realize.
Why did you feel threatened though? Like, have you looked around? Do you know what I mean? From her, I'm talking from her
perspective.
Yeah.
But looking back as well, you know, it's been 5-6 years since I left that role, and she's still in that role.
Right.
And my manager, my direct line manager, is still a studio manager. So you see, this is what happens when I can't speak for anyone else, but when I go somewhere, I want to make a move. I'm not sitting here in the same role forever. I'm not here to like keep everybody comfortable. I want to find a way to excel and advance.
Right.
I'm not going to spend 6 years in a role waiting around for I don't know what. So I want to know that there's a career progression. There's something that I'm going to be working towards.
Right.
When I can look back and think no one has changed their roles and they're still in that same position.
But a lot of these workplaces are very cliquish, though, aren't they?
Well, it shows me, it shows that I must have been some kind of a threat, or there must have been some kind of implication that me working there wasn't any room. It felt like there wasn't any room for me, and there wasn't any room going to be made, if that makes sense.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. How about your experience?
Yeah.
No, sorry.
So I'm Pakistani. I was born in Pakistan, and then I came here when I was only a couple months. So didn't even go to school until year 3, year 4 maybe. Didn't speak English. So for me, going into school, primary school, and being from a countryside. So I'm Pakistani in a school with, I would say, all of the kids were white, all of the parents were white, all of the teachers were white, and I think I was the only one who was Asian. There was a lot of bullying kind of thing, so...
But am I correct in saying like you could pass for like more than one ethnicity?
Yes, I could pass now, but I think that's because obviously if you factor in hair, makeup, outfit, but then you can't compare that to a child because then a child is straight what you are. So I had a lot of bullying. Okay, this is going to be a little bit so Asian kids, my little brother as well, he's got a mustache already. He's only 11. I also had a mustache when I was 11. So there was a lot of like you're a hairy Pakistani. You're da 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 la la la. There was like a lot of, but I took it in a way that, okay, cool, how can I use this to my advantage? So I kind of had to change my mentality, and instead of being like, oh, I'm the only one here, why don't I use this to my advantage and be like, you know what? I know more than you guys, da da da. Like I used to tell them about my stories and stuff. Going forward as well, I now realize that in secondary school, everyone wanted to be not white. And this is something that you guys can also probably see, as, social media and everything started advancing over time. Rap, the whole
an increase of
dress
cultural
game.
appropriation. Maybe.
Yeah.
So, and stuff.
Everyone's obviously trying to be something that they're not. So I think I tried to be one step ahead of the game and tried to take advantage of that. Going into the workplace, one of my jobs that I went for, I was a personal assistant. And this was for a family that were a part of the royal family. So they are like a subsidiary, but not very high up, but high up enough. Went for the job. I got the job because of obviously the way I spoke, and that was because I went to a school predominantly with white kids. They liked me, they thought, okay, she'll do. Went into it and felt almost pressured as if what I wasn't enough. I am used to eating with my hands, culturally. For us, we do things a different way.
Same.
So it's like a thing where, you have to change yourself you have to adjust to the environment. So first dinner that I had with the family, I had about 3 forks, 3 knives. And I'm sat there thinking, okay, cool, so this is new. So obviously I didn't do well with that. I don't know what to pick up. So they started mocking me in a sense. They were like, oh, okay, so you've never really, the little things kind of really hurt and you feel it from the way you talk. The occasional slang comes out.
Yeah,
the tone, the interests that you have. I didn't have many common interests. So then there was a lot of discrimination in that sense. But then instead of taking it to heart, I mocked myself because you have to be strategic. I think as bad as it is, when you kind of look at it from afar, it's like, why are you like taking the piss out of yourself?
Why are you betraying yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it was a smart move because then it kind of, to them, they don't deep it as much.
Of course they don't.
They don't deep it as much. So then you start picking up more. And then obviously you have to be similar to what lifestyle they live.
Yeah.
But then I feel like I call it being like a chameleon. You're kind of adjusting. Every room you go into, you're going to be a different person. Same way you guys said that you went into a work environment predominantly with white people. You are not going to be the same person you are there when in comparison to when you're with your friends.
You call it cooning as well.
Yeah. So it's pretty much, I think it's a skill that we all have to master. You have to kind of adjust to your environment. But it's something that is very sad. I think it's very sad.
I feel like that's the saddest part about intersectionality.
Yeah.
It's the disassociating yourself in order to just be in an environment.
Accepted.
Yeah.
And in these cases, in an environment that's you need to be in because I need to live. So I need to work.
Yeah.
But for me, in order for me to work, I need to adjust myself so that you don't feel uncomfortable. And sometimes it might be uncomfortable in silence.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because sometimes I don't want to talk all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean I'm concocting some crazy like idea. I could be thinking literally about flowers. Like I literally can just be thinking like, fancy getting some tulips or something. But because I'm silent and I'm not, or I don't look the same as everyone.
Right.
It's like unnerving, you know? And that can have a massive effect on the day-to-day thing when you're in an environment when you're working, you know? You have to always be playing up. You always have to be like, yeah, you know, okay, cool. And it's like, it's exhausting. It's exhausting.
Recently, my friend's mum got made redundant. She's been working in this place for like 15 odd years. You know, again, she was the only person of colour, only black woman there. Gets on with everybody, you know, for the most part. And obviously, when it's time to make people redundant, they got to come up with excuses, don't they? Right?
Yeah.
You know, essentially. And he was saying how she had a little row with somebody, you know, just a little one, not nothing, you know, too crazy or anything like that. And these people basically who she thought like, you know, are her friends, you know, basically like sold her down the river. Like in the end, they turned on her because she basically acted out of character. I.e. in that situation, i.e. she acted too black, basically. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's like, oh, okay, what, aggressive? You want to, you know, that kind of stuff. And then they got rid of her. And he was saying how she's quite naive when it comes to, you know, like these kind of situations, you know. And you got to be like, look, you got to read the room, you know, because at the end of the day, you know, you're not white. You know, no matter how much you try and act white, this is a white majority country. And, you know, there are certain constructs in place that are just there, you know, and obviously people of colour have to navigate through this. So it's important that, you know who you are and you have self-awareness. You know, otherwise they can just pull that rug underneath your feet, just like that.
And what you have to understand as well, like further to your point, is that it's not about, you know, I don't want it to be a thing of like, I'm a victim, you know, of circumstance and all of these things. Yes, I'm aware that there are these constructs in place, and it's usually the ones that are the most effective, right? Oppression and discrimination, when it's the most effective, is almost undetectable. It's almost untraceable because that's when it's working. That's when you can't see that you're being oppressed or being discriminated against, that's when it's the most efficient, right? But it's important for you to recognize who you are and what your boundaries are, so that you can understand when something is just out of line, because that is like, I don't want to say it, but to some extent, I also feed into this narrative by not being myself.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Like, you know, you're afraid to even speak up because someone's going to call you aggressive. But it's like, look, I'm not aggressive. Case in point is, what you've said is wild. It's not within my job description. I don't want to do that. I shouldn't have to. Can we have a conversation about this? You know? And the moment you even raise something like that, you're deemed as, you know, and it's about actually constantly having those conversations, those difficult conversations.
Yeah.
And it's actually going to be our like us who have to have those difficult conversations, because I don't want my younger cousins and like the next generation to have to be dealing with this nonsense and disassociate and becoming chameleons.
It's a never-ending fight at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And obviously people can misconstrue this, you know, obviously people who are small-minded as, oh, you're pulling a race card, you know, and again, it's not about, you know, having a victim mentality or playing the race card, you know, it's not that at all, but this is the reality for, you know, a lot of women and men. But that goes on to my next point about how different the ramifications are in a workplace or in society as a black man compared to a black woman, you know. And I've walked out of places that I used to work. You know, I'm about respect. You know, I don't care who you are. You know, I've been shouting at managers in front of the owners, and you know, shut the whole place down. You know, and look, like when we were speaking about this the other day, you know, obviously you've been working for a long time, you know, and you were just saying like how, like when you're so like you've become accustomed to almost being gagged, you know. Or my thing is like, well, why can't you do? There has to be a solution to this, or don't. You know, I said to you, well, just don't have it.
He was like, just don't have it, and I was like, what? And like, so in the just to give you context, it's just like you were talking about work, and he's like, oh, I walk out of places, and I just walk out, and I'll tell someone I'm not having it, and I couldn't even believe that you could do that. I mean, of course, also you have to understand as well, men and women are also raised very differently. Initially, when you're raised, like girls always say, you know, how I was raised, be quiet, you know, sit down like this, you're constantly told to like be a bit more like, you know,
obedient, suppress yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, and boys are like, oh yeah, you know, you're supposed to be like this and go and don't cry, didn't it? So initially, as a man and a woman, you're both raised completely different. You inherently have this like fight or flight kind of situation thing. So when it comes to a workforce,
even discourse, the way they'll generally managers, they'll deal. I've been in workplaces where the managers are talking to, you know, or dealing with the women of color in a particular way, but they're not talking like that to me.
Because there's a whole different thing. Because I think and like I was also saying, like, you know, as a black man, I've been in situations where I can see people are initially intimidated because there's an element of fear. So no one would even question some of the outrageous things people have said to me in the workplace, and I've literally just gone,
okay.
Fine. Like I could never think to just be like, what? Because it's embarrassing for me and for you to I just
believe in taking action. You know, I believe in this, you know, just reacting. Making a statement from your actions, you know, and basically like saying I'm not gonna have this. I'm not gonna be, you know what I'm saying, your bitch, or you know, or someone that you can just use as a puncher bag, or you know, because you've woke up on the wrong side of the bed, you know. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking from a man's perspective. I don't know, because you've said you've seen, you know, obviously women of color get fired for less. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I even got made redundant recently.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Just based on what?
I would love to know. I would actually.
Do you want to expand on that a bit? I know obviously you can't really bring them up, but you can still talk about it.
You sign a basically a gag clause, and you can't speak against the company.
So even that, I'll just speak about them.
Yeah, I wouldn't care. Just
Yeah,
talk about
you
it.
see.
What can they
I'm
do?
not
No, of
encouraging you to
course,
do that.
Well, actually,
What can they really do then?
no. Yeah, I know, but there's, like what can they do? But there's also an element of I don't want to come out of. I'm constantly aware of myself as a woman and as a black woman. I don't want to always come out of my character. I don't want to be that person that people expect me to be,
Yeah.
which is like
The angry black woman.
speaking out of control. I'm constantly always sense checking myself to just be like, come back in here, come back in here, come back in here.
But sometimes you just have to act like that, though.
Yeah,
That's how I feel
but
about
we
it. You know what? I'm gonna give you what you want to see.
I think
Yeah.
you know what there is. There's ways of combating things, and you have to use society as leverage.
Yeah.
If you look at things as a whole,
Mm.
there is a lot of uproar about this topic.
Mm.
There is a lot of things you can do to combat it. I
Yeah.
can say that 100%.
Mm.
Firstly, if you get pulled in
Mm.
and they say to you very vaguely, we are going to make you redundant, don't really give you a reason why, you have to question it,
Yeah.
and you have to indirectly, passively threaten them. And it's very easy to do because they actually don't fear their managers as much as they fear being cancelled. So you have to be very, how would you like it if I took this to court?
Yeah.
Because I can get a lot of money from this, you know?
Yeah.
Because you can actually raise it and you can make it into a way bigger thing.
Mm.
Surely they wouldn't like being mentioned in the news articles
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
It can be a big thing.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to combat it, and you have to be very strategic, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it's the way that society is.
Yeah.
So I've actually helped people. I haven't gone through it personally, but I've helped people beat cases and stuff. So it's a thing where
Jeez.
you have to be on your toes a little bit,
Yeah.
like in the moment.
Yeah.
So God forbid if that situation ever does come again, you can say it in a very articulate way without sounding like an angry black woman, as some people would say. So it's all about mindset, confidence.
Yeah.
Confidence is such a big thing because when you walk into a room and act like you own it, it does work. I can guarantee it.
Yeah.
I have an amazing friend called Sintish. She's an amazing black woman. She's so great at everything she does. She has a business. She works with social media. I met her on a podcast, and she actually, me and her speak a lot about these things as well. And I think it's all about asserting dominance, even as a woman.
Yeah.
And women can actually be way stronger than men.
Yeah.
We can use our vulnerability to our advantage.
Yeah.
Because men, you don't have that privilege. We do. We can walk into a room, we can actually victimize ourselves and then use it in a strategic way.
Yeah.
I think it's all about how, I don't want to sound like a calculated person. I'm not calculated,
I'm
but
like,
I
you're
can
giving
be.
all of the secrets away.
You
Yeah,
have
this
to
is-
be
this is
a
what-
little bit calculated. You have to
Exactly.
be,
This is what this
you know?
platform's for.
Yeah.
So it's all about mindset.
Yeah.
I think.
I completely agree. I mean,
And you're not even the quote unquote. You're not an aggressive person,
yeah.
Sharon. I don't.
Yeah.
The fact that they try and use that against
Yeah.
you blows my mind. Do you know what I mean? It's just not you.
I
whatsoever.
mean, I can be quite direct, and that's it. And I think what Mika's mentioning is clear. It's like when that happens, you have to be confident and follow through.
Yeah.
Because if there's a slight moment of hesitation, that's when they're like, do you believe what you're saying? And then it's like, well, you're
Yeah.
actually being quite aggressive now. And then you're like, okay, I'm so sorry. Yeah, actually, I'm
See,
fine.
they've got you.
Yeah.
So you have to be like, no, what I'm saying is right, and this is what I believe in, and this is the fact of the matter.
Yeah.
You know, but situations further to your other point as well. It's like a lot of other things have to be taken into consideration when people are made like sadly redundant or put in those situations. It's like it's easy to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's easy to be like, no, you can fight against it. But you know, for me, it's like I've got a mortgage to pay and all of these other things and responsibilities that I don't have the privilege actually to relax and be like, actually, I'm going to spend some money on a lawyer to fight these people who have decided that today I'm not valid or I don't work, I'm not.
not necessarily the fact that I don't think you need a lawyer. I don't think you need any support. I think you need to bluff.
Yeah.
Because do you know what? I will say 80% of the time, people will actually go with it.
Yeah.
The more you bluff and the more you kind of, it's all about
Crocodile tears.
Well,
Yeah.
they actually paid for my legal team, and when I told them how I was made redundant, they were like, "This is wild." There was no conversation. It was on that day. It was like, "Okay, so we've decided to make this role redundant. We've decided that like, the company's changing, and we've changed the way we're going. So can we have your laptop and your keys there and then?"
straight.
That's bonkers. The lawyers were like, "This is." We could actually go for wrongful dismissal, and I was like, but then also what the tactic is like if you work for a company for over 2 years, then you can apply for wrongful dismissal. They made me redundant 1 year and 9 months, so I'm
Right.
just under. So I
Right.
couldn't even argue the case of wrongful dismissal. Do you see what I mean? So it's about also knowing about your legal rights.
Right.
And through
Yeah,
this, I
yeah,
now
exactly.
know what I'm legally allowed to do. I know how to move in the workforce, and it's like you need to read the contracts that you're given
Yeah.
and understand what they mean. When you sign a contract, I've been made, I've got a salary. What does this mean though?
Exactly.
What does this bit mean? What's this clause actually mean? Okay, cool.
Small print.
You can get them to adjust it.
Exactly.
So before you sign anything, you can actually contest it,
Yeah.
challenge it, and say, well, I don't agree with this clause. I don't want to work with you guys because I don't agree with the contract. I'm not going to sign it. And I've done it about 3-4 times.
And that is
works
like
every time.
That's the changing it slowly. That's the pushing back on the system.
Yeah.
You know?
It's obviously an institutional problem. That's the core of it. So when we talk about solutions, you know, I guess there are a vast amount of, you know, ways where we can, you know, you can try and combat this, you know, like you've suggested, you know.
Yeah.
Some ways you can go about it, but I think there needs to be like more awareness on this, because I feel like, you know, there's just a lot of women, you know, a lot of women of color specifically, you know, just like suffering in silence and feeling like there's no hope.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what bugs me the most. You know, you shouldn't be like subjected to this, and for people to get away with it. And well, you know, you've been made jobless, redundant. You've got things to pay for, and all, you know, all because of, you know, some bigotry or some, you know, biasness, like, you know. So yeah, again, it's just like, so yeah. So like, have you got any other sort of views on how you can, you know, we can go about this differently?
I mean, well, I was going to say that I feel like Black women are more made, they're more discriminated than than the average black man, because...
Interesting.
Yeah, I feel that because you can, a man against another man, they would rather, okay, how do I put this? It's easier to fire, or it's easier to get rid of a woman than a man, because especially if the guy who's doing the firing is a man, because they feel like, okay, I'm not gonna come to this man because there's a level of respect, there's a level of, oh, okay, I don't...
Thin line between getting hit or not.
right, exactly. You know, they don't want to face the consequences.
I've taken managers outside, you know, and they've never treated me away again, you know, like literally, no, on the shop floor, you try to talk to me, man, we're going outside now. What?
Yeah, but
you know,
that's what Blessing is trying to say. We can't take managers outside.
We can't.
I'll be like, excuse me, can we just have a word outside?
No.
I think
we can't do that.
Outside
it's more difficult when the managers are female.
This is it.
Men are okay. Male managers are okay.
I know,
but it's the catty female managers.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't, like, with men, I think male managers have more of a soft spot for women.
Yeah.
So we get away with a lot when it comes to a man managing us, but when
Yeah.
it comes to a woman managing us,
Yeah.
it's relentless.
Different.
There is
Different.
no
Yeah.
hesitation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you're out,
Which is
done.
such a shame.
It is a shame.
It's such a shame. Like honestly, as women, like that is a like even.
But
I just
don't
gave
that speak to the
example
nature
before.
of women,
women.
Yeah.
to an
Yeah.
extent?
Women are competitive. Like
Competitive.
women
Yeah,
are
very
very.
competitive.
So then when
Yeah.
you put this
Very
gaze,
competitive.
this like additional thing on top of it, it's
Yeah.
like now you're fighting very like a serious like if your manager happens to is not a woman of color.
Yeah.
But even sometimes, yeah, it's very complex, man. I've even worked in places where there's people, where there's black managers, and you're just like, what are we doing here?
Yes.
What game is being played?
Yeah.
Like we're supposed to, and it's not that you want to work for someone who's I don't want to just work for black women I want to work for. Well, I want to work for myself now,
Yeah.
but I want to work in an environment where
I'm
you're just
respected.
treated- you're just treated
treated.
on the
Ultimately.
merit of your work. I
Yeah.
turn up on time. I'm
Exactly.
answering all these emails.
Exactly.
I'm conducting myself. I'm having a shower. Some people turning up to work, cutting their toenails in the studio, and no one pulls them up. Do you know what I mean?
What?
Yeah, this is the kind, like, you know what I mean. But it's
No
like,
way.
so can we just treat people with just a level, just a general level of respect that everyone should be like afforded? You know.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to think about myself being a woman and a black woman and also having all of this stuff when you walk through the door. It's
And
too
then
much.
the
you
reality
know
of
once you
life.
settle as well, what I notice, in general with people, like it's always it's foreign people. Sorry, it's like once you settled in this workplace. Now there was this girl that I was seeing, black girl I was seeing years ago, and she was saying how now after she settled in this workplace and whatnot, she went for a drink with this guy, work colleague and that. They're drinking and he's gone to her like, oh, now like, oops. Anyway.
Oh,
Wait, is it a lotion?
It don't matter. No. So, I'm in character here. So she's gone, now that we're friends and that, is it alright if I can call you my nigger?
Can you imagine?
Sorry.
The white male work colleague said to this girl, she told me this. They went for a drink and she wasn't there long. She settled. And so they went for a drink and the guy's gone like, oh, is that all right if I can call you my nigger? Yeah.
There's so many levels to that. Because actually, that phrase is also used.
Never happened to me. Never.
These are the kind of questions we
But-
get asked.
What the?
What was her reaction? What did she say?
What? She was flabbergasted. Like her jaw dropped. Like that was the end of the night.
Silent though.
That was the end of the
You see,
night.
because that's the shock. That's what happens. Like,
But she lives outside London. Put it that way. And obviously a very white town. There is also obviously black community there, but predominantly.
But it's like, how do you come back from that? Like, as a work, if I worked in, it's like,
What?
how?
What does that suggest? What's the undertone of that?
The
Why do you? You know what I'm saying? Why do you want to call me?
creating a
Call me
mockery
that?
out of
Yeah,
it.
What-
Yeah.
Why have we come to this? And also, like, this is, even if that is a terminology that's used amongst black people, it's even like you don't like. It's not even said to it's women. It's so weird now. We're in a really weird place now that you suggest that you want to call me that. And now, how do I come back to work? And how do I now know what you really think about me? Because I'm a stereotype. Like I've even on a Zoom call.
Do you think people like that are racist?
You
Do
think?
you think people like that are racist?
I think racism is hatred towards a different, obviously, race. I think what he's trying to do is mocking it in a sense. It's like all your focus is going majority on my looks, my colour. Like that is it's very humiliating and it's very dehumanizing because is that all you see of me? So her response should have been, you have to be nice nasty. You have to be nice nasty because you can't destroy the professionalism, but then you also have to You have to, there's a
that
very
ground
thin line.
plane, yeah.
You have to sit on the fence,
Always.
unfortunately.
You see what I mean?
but you have to be strategic with
Because
it.
I think you get these people in the workplace who don't really rub shoulders with people of color or black people as much.
Yeah.
So
Right.
when they go into a workplace, do you know what I mean? Whatever they see, like on the TV or on YouTube, you know, and they might think, "Oh, this is cool. This is, you know what I mean? I want to be cool."
Yeah, they want to jump
So-
on the bandwagon.
So they see you at the
Yeah.
workplace now, you
Yeah.
know, and like, "Oh, well, can I?" You know what I mean? Is that right if I call you my? No.
That's going back to what I said as well when it comes to people wanting to be, because you know what it is, unfortunately, you know, being black and the culture and everything is
We lit, man.
it's a trend. Like people make a trend out of it.
It's a whole mood.
It's a whole mood. I step outside my house. I live in an area where it's still predominantly white, and I'm seeing all these kids with hood rich,
I know, innit?
trap star,
Traps.
but you live in a £2-3 million house. Like, what are
I
you trying
know,
to?
innit?
Do you know what I mean? It's a very
Carrying a
like,
knife.
like there's no need. Like you can just, you know, and then that's probably the type of person that she came across.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
just wanted to be like, but you need to draw that line and say, look, you are that. Just, you know, just put that aside. Stop looking at me for. Like, it's just a very dehumanizing thing, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
And what you have to understand as well is that we are all different people in the work in that environment as
Yeah.
well, right? And it's like one of the things that I've also found quite challenging is that we're different people. We talk about different things. Like my life is completely different as a black woman from my community. I have had to think about certain things that someone else, my white counterparts, may not have to worry about, and they don't have to think about.
Yeah.
So when in general conversation, when you're telling me that you want to, like, I don't know, like you're doing this to your house or whatever, I can't engage in that, and that's not me. That shouldn't make you feel bad, and it shouldn't make me have to come out of myself to play a character. You
Yeah.
should just be allowed to let that be, you know?
Yeah.
Tell me about your house. Tell me about what you're doing, but I'm not going to engage in the conversation with you. I have nothing to contribute. And me not contributing doesn't mean I'm being like rude or uncommunicative or not social. It just means that we have different things that we can't relate on everything. And I think that's also the crux of it as well, is that like those kind of comments come up from people trying to force the relationship.
Yeah,
They're like,
right.
oh yeah, okay, so now we've been working together. I
Right.
can call you my nigga.
Whoa, what is that?
Because actually,
Yeah.
that's not what.
No.
We can talk about a lot of other
Yeah.
things,
How
and you can call me so many
insensitive.
other things. One of them being my name,
Yeah.
but don't, this is not where we're going, and it's about the differences, and the differences are always making us like pull further apart, when really and truly it should be like, oh, what is that? Why can't you speak to me? Let's talk about why you can't talk to me about your house being done, or why you think you can talk to me and call me your nigger. Like, let's talk about that, because if we speak about it, then it doesn't need to happen again. But it's always about the awkward silence and no one speaks about it.
Yeah, there you go.
You know,
There you go.
we need to have these conversations because it raises awareness, and then when you raise awareness, then changes can be made, policies can be made, and then the structure, the infrastructure of these work environments, or whatever it is, the society, hospital, healthcare, or schools, all of these things can start changing a little bit, and then that's when the change comes. But if we don't speak about it,
It goes unspoken. Yeah.
Yeah, but as much as you want to talk about it, I feel like real change, especially if you're trying to change people's mind and how they think of other people, is very difficult. And
Oh yeah. No, it's ongoing. It's ongoing. It's an ongoing battle. Because they like to try and promote inclusion and diversity, but a lot of the time it's just like virtual signaling. Sentiments a lot of the time. And a lot of window dressing.
Because if you want to like change your environment and include more people in your organization or where you work, you'd hire outside of that.
Right.
Like there's so many times, even at that design studio where I was working, I was like, I really want to help with the internship program. I think this is amazing. We should hire like junior designers who come from different backgrounds, and they're like, they'll look at portfolios and they're like, how much, what did he get? If he hasn't got a first, he's not coming here. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't mean the way a kid from, I don't know, Shropshire sees the colour red in comparison to a young boy from London who's from a black background sees the colour red is completely different. How you integrate those into your design, into your work creatively, it could completely change how your work is, what clients you in, but you're not willing to even risk including someone different or someone new. And it starts in those kind of little discussions and those little kind of breaking those changes, you know?
Yeah.
Because and that's when you start bringing in people who are different and people who look of different color, come from different backgrounds. And it's not only just about race, it's also about people from different economics environments, you know?
Absolutely.
You can't hire everyone that's called Tom. And they all live in the same village, and they all it's your work, and then you're surprised when you're not winning new clients, and your work isn't, your business isn't growing.
Right.
Change it, make it more actually inclusive, actually include people who are from different backgrounds. Let everyone get on.
Right.
You know, it's
easy said
It's
than done, though.
cosmopolitan city, you know, and we're hearing these stories, and
where
you
I
know,
work in zone 1, I'm the only black person of color in an office of 120 people. That is crazy. That actually is embarrassing.
speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Because I think what they do on their desks here when they get the CVs is they look at the name, and then if they see some Oluwatunde, Babatunde, they're straight in the bin, straight away. You know. So.
That's how power's kept, though, isn't it?
It is, it's an active thing. I
do you
think.
know what I mean?
It's just really sad because I've heard a lot of stories about parents actively going out of their way to choose names that cater towards the future of the child. A lot of Filipino friends, I've got Chinese friends, and they don't have ethnic names. They have fake names just so that they're guaranteed a higher chance of getting a job when their CV is viewed. It's very sad. It's very unfortunate.
That's the truth.
But it's the country we live in, right?
Do you know what I mean?
It's the country, I guess. Yeah.
There we go.
It's
So ultimately, we must consider everything and anything that can marginalize people, i.e., race, disability, sexual orientation, gender, and so forth. So, ladies, thank you very much for your contribution on this special episode. I think it's a special one, don't you?
Yeah. I agree.
You know, thank you, Mika. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Blessing. So, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you comment. Make sure you like, and let us know what you think of
Share it too.
intersectionality, and share it too, just like Blessing said. Boy BX, over and out. Wicked.
Cool.
Let's go. Well done,
Thanks,
guys.